very brave man. So I'm going to attempt to fix the beat error on this pocket watch. It's an Elgin, whatever. Anyway, Elg something. It's a 1890 pocket watch, so it's pretty old. And I've already done some work on it. As you can see, I've loosened the back up here so it's easy to open. As you can see, or can't see, on the face of this thing, I've put a shim in there to keep the, there's a button on the top that needs to be, right there, needs to be retained. Let me just see if I can show it this way. This little button needs to be pressed in for this to set the timing perfectly, so that's all fixed. So I didn't want to take the movement out again and try to fix that, so I'm going to do what I normally won't do, or don't do, and that is taking out the balance cock without removing the movement. It looks like there's enough gap in here to do that, so I don't typically like doing that because you could screw up the pivots on the balance staff, which is not recommended. So, but I'm going to do it. So what I want to do is fix a beat error. I got a beat error of around 8 on this, which is really bad. So what I'm going to try to do is fix that beat error. And to do that, first thing I'm going to do is remove the balance here. So if I screw this up completely, you guys will be witnessing it. So, and we'll let me get my tools out here. One thing I learned a long time ago is that when you take parts out of a watch, put them aside right away and move them kind of up out of the way so your elbows and crap don't interfere. So right now the balance, like, it's timed really well, so it's that ain't the issue. So I'm just loosening everything up here so I can take out the balance. This is, what do they say? This is probably a bad idea. So there we go. So the balance is out now. There it is there. And now the problem is when the balance is kind of in position here, and if you look at the pallet, if I were to look at the, I should hang this on a proper device here. Let me just get this down here for a second. And I'll explain this to you. So let me just put this over here for a second. So here's the story. Let's see which camera I point this at. This is probably not too bad there. So this is the pallet fork right here. And you can see how that snaps back and forth nicely. And actually, if the impulse jewel is completely aligned here with the pallet fork, when the pallet fork is between the banking pins, then the beat error should be 0, and it's measured in milliseconds. And the beat error is actually the difference between the balance rotating one way and the angle there, and the time it takes to do that, and it going all the way around and rotating the other way, and the time it takes to do that. And that's the beat error, and it should be exactly the same amount of time in both directions. So if the beat error is off, then the pocket watch or the watch will be off as well. So what you want to do is align the balance, or the hairspring and everything else, so it's perfect, right? So you typically, well, you have to take the hairspring off, which is a bit of a pain to do this, and then you have to move the collet. But the first thing I'm going to do is have a look at this. Just lay it down, straight down, and have a look at it and see what it looks like with respect to where the roller jewel is, or the impulse jewel. So, and I got to make sure that the impulse jewel is on the correct side, or sorry, it's 90 degrees to the balance. So I don't want to screw this up. So if I look at this right now, I can see that the impulse jewel here on the roller table is not at 90 degrees. So either I did that for some reason, which I might have, or when the roller table was reinstalled on the balance, it moved somehow. So I'm not sure which is the truth, but this is where it is right now. So now I know that the impulse jewel is there. What I'm going to do is take the balance off of the balance cock very carefully. Of course, when you're doing all this stuff and you're videotaping it, it makes it all that much more difficult. So just very carefully unscrew this. And when you're unscrewing this, the last thing you want to do is have your screwdriver foul up into the hairspring. Because if the hairspring gets fouled, you're kind of screwed. So I'm just going to very lightly lift that up, like so. And then I'm going to take this off, like that. And then turn it around so the hairspring doesn't get fouled, and then rest it. Okay, so there we go. So there's the balance cock, and the whole lot. So the next thing I'm going to do here is take the balance cock and just put it back in like this, because I do have to know the position of the stud, where that stud goes in. And generally I know the alignment here, because it's got to be 100% aligned between those banking pins in a straight line. So it's usually from here, from this jewel here, which is the cap jewel, right, for the balance cock, straight through to where the jewel is on the inside of the pallet fork, and then straight through to the jewel on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth wheel, which is the escapement. So that creates a single line. So I want the impulse jewel to be aligned up completely with that single line. So I know that the impulse jewel here is on this side. I'm going to watch what I do here. I'm going to screw this up. Again, doing this while you're videotaping is nasty. So I don't know how Mark does it, because Mark makes all these videos and he's like Mr. Video Expert. So if I look at the alignment here, and the first thing I do is I just put a little tiny mark on the balance of where the impulse jewel will be lined up. So it's actually pointing right at this timing screw right here. So yeah, it's lined up perfectly with this timing screw right here. I'll just put a little mark here, so like that. So, and see if I can I actually do this or would it actually zoom in? Probably not. There we go. So I put a little mark there, so it's lined up. The impulse pin, or the impulse jewel here is perfectly lined up right now with that timing screw. That doesn't show well. Anyway, whatever. So it's for your viewing pleasure. I gotta go online and fly with a buddy of mine in a few minutes. So anyway, so that's the alignment of that impulse pin. So if I look at that and I lay that down, or just look at where that is when I put it down like so, not sure if you can even see that, right? I need to get myself out of the way, but I'm going to move this camera a little closer, I think. See if I can just fold this in and move it closer. Not sure how close this can get, but can that get closer? Yeah, there we go. That's not too bad. So is that in focus? Sort of. So you want to lay this, you want to take this balance, and then you want to put it down. You know where the impulse pin is because you marked it, right? and it looks as though that the impulse pin should be centered right here, but it looks to be to the left of center. If I use the fifth wheel, which is the escapement, lined up with the jewel for the pallet fork lined up with the cap jewel for the balance cock, it looks like, and I make sure that the balance stud is lined up perfectly where it would go in to the balance cock. So that's lined up perfectly. So I line that up, and then I look where that mark is, and that mark is to the left-hand side of that line. So if I rotate the spring, the whole spring, it has to go counterclockwise to move that stud over. So it has to go counterclockwise just a tad. So a tad is a technical measure, I think. Yeah, so that's lined up, and it's just to the left of that. So if I move the spring counterclockwise, that will move the whole balance to the right. So theoretically. So what I do is I take a screwdriver, which is hopefully the right size, and I stick it into the groove here, and I just shift this over a bit, like that. So I just moved that by taking a screwdriver, putting it into the groove. Mama's got her groove. Let me raise the camera up just a bit here. So I take a screwdriver here, I stick it into the slot right there, and then I have to move that counterclockwise, and then look at where the alignment is now. So if I put that down again, right, and look at how that's aligned now, and it is worse. So I actually moved it the wrong way. I should be moving it the other way. This is good, so I can show you how it's done. I don't know why I moved it the wrong way. I said counterclockwise, but I moved it clockwise. So I'm a bit of an idiot, I guess. So put the screwdriver in the groove like this, and then twist it this way, like that. Now I'll have a look at it again, and I'll line the stud that goes into the balance cock like this, and now it's way too far over, so I have to move it clockwise a bit. It's a game of playing here. And again, I don't want to interfere with the okay, that's almost right here. Let me go down again. I'm looking straight down to see where that jewel lines up. So it's still over on the left-hand side a bit. So I've got to move it counterclockwise just a bit more. Now I'll look where that stud is. It's vibrating a bit here, so. Too much. I'll move it just a bit back again. And then I'll look at that again. That looks perfectly aligned. Okay, so that looks aligned. So now I have to reinstall the balance. Just very lightly put this down here, like so. And I have to reinstall the balance onto the balance cock. So I'm not going to bother, I don't know if I want to bother showing you how that's done, but so the first thing to do is remove the balance cock from the balance, or from the watch, like so. And then I've got to, like that, and then I flip that around, and I usually keep the regulator pins on this thing. I move this completely over so that the regulator pins are very close to where the stud is. That way when I put the spring in, it's all aligned. So I'm going to go offline for a second because it is a tricky job and I don't think I can do it while I'm recording. So I'm going to stop recording. So I've got the balance back in. I've got the balance basically attached really well here. It didn't take me that much time actually, so I'm going to very carefully attempt to put the balance back in position here. And so the first thing I got to do is know which way I'm approaching that balance, because the fork is on the left hand side if I'm looking straight down. And so when I put the balance in, I've got to put it in at this angle and then rotate it this way. That way the impulse jewel can catch the mouth of the pallet fork. So I'll put it in this way. Now I could approach the other way, but it might be a little trickier, so I'm not sure. So I'm going to very carefully, and I don't want to screw up the hairspring and everything else on this, so I'm going to very carefully grab this with my tweezers and make sure I've got a good grip on it. Because if I don't, this could be worse. So I'm going to rotate that around, as you can see, like so. And then I'm going to make sure the jewel is on the left-hand side of that pallet fork. I'm going to very carefully put the balance underneath the second wheel, like that. And then I'm going to rotate the balance cock like this. I'm going to make sure that is in place nicely. Rotate the balance cock like this, and then drop that into place, like so. And with any luck, it's going to start moving, so it's kind of moving a bit. And then I put in the balance cock screw here. Not sure what it's called, but balance cock holding screw or whatever it is. Just very carefully put that in place, like so. And then when I screw it down, you don't screw it down tightly until you absolutely know that the balance is in place. What I typically do is I give it just a little bit of a screw like this, and then I'll move the balance around just a bit to make sure the pivots can find the jewel hole. Okay, that's not right. Back that off a little bit. This could be a little tough here. There we go. Oh, I love when it just vibrates when I'm doing this. That way I can't screw it up. I've had too much coffee this morning. So I think that's in nicely. And the balance is just ticking away like it's brand new. So there we go. So the next thing I'm going to do is set up the camera so it's pointing at the program that I have called Watch Escape and Analyzer. And then I'm going to determine whether I've done anything here with respect to aligning that balance properly. So what I'll do is set the cameras up and then I'll be back in a second. Alright, I got it all set up here, but my bead error is still bad. So I'm not going to take it apart again, but we'll see if there's any change when I change the regulator. So right now it's running at minus 300 seconds per day, so I got to speed this thing up a bit. So I'm just going to move this arm ever so slightly over, see if I get anything here. Now it's minus 44 seconds per day. Let's move it a bit more here. And it's plus 27 seconds per day. Still have a shitty beat error, I don't know why. So plus 72 seconds per day. I'll just move it a little bit more here. And wait till it settles down. And that is still plus 41 seconds per day. The beat error is still crappy even though I aligned the jewel up, so I'm not sure what happened there, but that's what you would typically do. So I don't want to. So this is like 0.6 seconds per day, 0.9, 2.9 seconds per day. It's minus 5 seconds per day. So I think I'll just nudge it just a bit more, maybe. Maybe not. Swinging back and forth between minus and plus. So I'm going to leave it right there. As you can see, it's doing really well. 0 seconds per day. Even though it's got a shitty beat error, the amplitude's nice and strong, and the rate's nice too, as well. So now that should have fixed the beat error, but maybe I just didn't align it up properly. So, and just as dial up position and run. It's a really strong amplitude now. It's 2,669 now, and the beat error is 7.30. So now I've got to do pennant up. And then dial down. And then pennant down. And the last one is pennant left. So swing that over. Eventually I'll go downstairs and machine myself a thing to put on the top of this to correctly grab the watch, regardless of what size it is. So not sure how I'll do it yet, but we have to just put some pegs in there and figure out how to clamp that in. So this is pennant left. So there we go, like that. Just rotate that a bit. Alright, so what are my averages? Let me just move this up just a bit here so you can see it better. There it is there. So I have achieved, put my glasses on here, so my beat error is still crappy. My average amplitude is 222, which is pretty good. The average beat error is 8.86, but I'm at a rate of 3.9 seconds per day, which is pretty darn good. I got a couple of big pluses with pennant sideways here on the watch, and then I have some minuses with pennant down as well, so that may have something to do with the shape of the pivots. It could be the beat error is bad, so you can't get the consistency and the timing if the beat error is off, so that needs to be fixed. Anyway, so that's how you basically do it. Time the watch, and again, I'm using Watch Escapement Analyzer and Timer, which is a pretty cool tool. It allows me to analyze the watch really well, and maybe later when I get smarter I can do the signal analysis. I can tell you what's going on with respect to the signal. That's it. Thank you very much for watching this video.